The ancient Greek maxim, know thyself, gnosis αυτόν, famously inscribed at the Temple of Apollo in Delphi, is far more than a simple exhortation to introspection or a call to compile a list of personal traits that, like most people do. Our contemporary understanding of self-knowledge often devolves into a superficial inventory of roles, affiliations, and curated public personas. We define ourselves by our professions, our relationships, our social media profiles, even our consumer choices. These, however, are masks, functions, adaptations, and reactions that we adopt to navigate into the world, into the social world. They represent what we've become, and it's a product of socialization and external conditioning rather than what we are at our core. The erosion of inner clarity, the trap of socialization. From childhood, we are trained to conform, to perform, and to survive within established structures of society. This process, while it is necessary for communal living, can lead to a gradual drift away from an essential inner clarity. This something essential, it's not a memory of a past identity, but a direct and mediated awareness of our being. And the trap lies in mistaking the external scenario of our lives for the actual true self. We lose touch with the signal behind the static of our roles and external identifications. The Trojan horse effect, false programs, the mind. The human being is like a computer. It can be programmed, and the kind of software it runs determines its performance. But just like computers are vulnerable to viruses, particularly Trojan horses, which appear harmless while they're hiding malicious code, so too is the human mind susceptible to ideologies, dogmas, belief systems that disguise themselves as truth or goodness. These belief systems are often installed quietly and over time. They don't enter with violence, they seduce, they offer a sense of security, of identity, or belonging. And once installed, they run in the background, shaping thought, behavior, while the person remains unaware that none of this is part of their original operating system. In other words, these beliefs are not the core self, but foreign code. To begin the process of liberation, the human being must first recognize this. They must engage in the ancient discipline of self-observation, the only tool that is capable of identifying and uninstalling false programs. And like with a corrupted computer, sometimes the only way forward is to format the system. So, not to erase who you are, but to clear out what you are not. This is where know thyself begins, not in adding more data, but in cleaning the interface, not in becoming more, but in becoming clear. Socrates, ignorance as the gateway to wisdom. Socrates, as well as all the other Greek philosophers, made know thyself the very foundation of philosophy. And it wasn't theory, it was life. And he taught that true wisdom begins not with knowledge, but with the acknowledgement of one's own ignorance. And this is not a flaw, it's the beginning of real learning. The soul that thinks it knows is closed. The soul that knows it does not know is open. And Socrates wasn't pointing out ignorance for its own sake. He was trying to extract the internal Trojan horses, the false certainties, the inherited beliefs, the unconscious ideologies that people carried without ever questioning them. Through dialogue, irony, and questioning in the agora, he acted like a mental surgeon, gently exposing the foreign code running their lives. And his aim was not to destroy, but to destroy illusion, so the individual could begin to see truth, not someone else's truth, their own truth. The radical call to disidentification. Know thyself is not an affirmation of the ego. It's a radical call to disidentify. It demands that we challenge the ingrained belief that what you think you are, you are. It invites us to observe the automatic thoughts, emotional patterns, and reactions that dominate our inner life, and to ask, is this truly me? Or is it something I have absorbed from the world? Self-observation, an ancient discipline. This practice of self-observation, it's not spiritual fluff. It is a deliberate, conscious form of attention and a kind of inner science. It involves observing automatic thoughts and questioning their origin, noticing deep emotional reactions that no longer serve us, but that we keep repeating, listening to the inner stories we tell ourselves and asking, whose voice is this, really? Freedom begins when we realize, unless you begin to see what you're not, you'll never uncover what you are. It is a process of elimination. And this is the true meaning of know thyself. Strip away the noise, to sit with yourself and to have an honest dialogue. Ideologies and beliefs, tools, not the self. Religions, political beliefs, ideologies, these are not the self. They are external structures into which the self is conditioned. They may shape our behavior, our language, even our sense of morality, but they are not us. And they are often inherited, absorbed, or adopted in reaction to external pressures, not chosen through an inner process. Most people don't defend their beliefs because they understand them. If they truly understood them, they would realize they are just that, beliefs. What they defend so fiercely, it's not truth, it's identity. They have fused their beliefs with the sense of self, and that fusion creates a very powerful illusion. To mistake what you believe for what you are. Ideologies offer meaning, belonging, and narrative, but when these narratives pull down the subtle movement of your being, when they replace your inner silence, they become walls between you and yourself. The true self comes before belief. It does not belong to any party, to any religion or slogan. It's not a position. It is witnessing and not labeling. Gurdjieff, the modern heir of an ancient task. Centuries after Socrates, Plato, and Heraclitus laid the foundation of self-inquiry, George Gurdjieff shattered the conventions of psychology and philosophy, not with abstract theory, but through radical, practical inner work. All this knowledge that was lost from the schools of philosophy that were destroyed, and what happened after they were destroyed, what survived were the text, not all the practice that they were doing in the philosophy schools, and Gurdjieff brought all this knowledge back. Gurdjieff spoke of the self not as a single, unified entity, but as a machine, a collection of fragmented eyes, constantly shifting, reacting, and wearing masks without awareness. And he called this condition sleep, like Heraclitus. And in Greek, the word for sleep is hypnos. How say hypnosis? From hypo, which means under, and nous, which means the higher mind or conscious awareness. So, to be asleep, it's to be under the nous, under the guidance lower impulses, and totally disconnected from higher awareness and consciousness. But awareness, true conscious presence, is captured in another Greek word, which is epinoia, from epi, meaning above, and nous, which is the higher mind again. Epinoia is not thought, it's awareness above the mind. It is presence beyond reaction. It is the light that reveals the machine and begins to unmake it. Awareness above the mind, the emotions and the desires, not the suppression of them, the ability to see them, to witness a thought without becoming the thought, to feel an emotion without being swept away by it, to notice a desire without obeying it blindly. And this is not detachment in the cold, disconnected sense. It is real presence. It's a higher kind of intimacy with the self, where every inner movement is observed, named, and integrated. It is the state that where you do not react from habit, but you respond from clarity. And this state is the beginning of inner freedom. And just like the Delphic maxim, Gurdjieff taught that awakening begins with self-observation. But for him this wasn't introspection, it was a shock. To see one's inner fragmentation directly without filters, to remembering oneself as the observer behind the machine. He said, without self-knowledge, without understanding of the working and functions of his machine, man cannot be free, he cannot govern himself, and he will always remain a slave. He offered no comfort. His method, the fourth way, was not for monks or mystics, but for those who are willing to work here and now, in the modern life, in the middle of life. He says, things as they are, because man is how he is. If man were different, things would be different. Long before Gurdjieff, Heraclitus had already seen this. The world is one and common to all who are awake, but the sleeping live in a world of their own. And he added to this by saying that the sleepers are workers and collaborators in what happens in the world. To know yourself is to awaken, to stop being a passive instrument in the great machinery, and to begin participating consciously in reality. The word Gnosis, ancient Greek for knowledge, carries more than just the idea of knowing. It contains within it a map of inner becoming. G as in Genesis, the beginning. But Genesis itself comes from the Greek gignome, which is to become. Not a fixed point, it's an unfolding, a continuous coming into being. Genesis, then, it is not a noun, it is a verb in disguise. It is motion, it is emergence and transformation. And for nous, the higher mind, the seat of direct perception and conscious awareness, not intellect, not calculation, but the capacity to witness truth without distortion. And osis, the end of the word, a Greek suffix denoting process, flow, or movement towards something. So when we speak of Gnosis, we are not talking about stored information or belief systems. We are speaking of a living process, the becoming of the higher mind towards origin, the genesis of consciousness itself. True Gnosis is the moment nous meets Genesis, the moment awareness begins to become. It's not something you collect, it's something you become. So who are you? A name, a role, a belief, or something much deeper, something watching, remembering, and waiting to be recognized? Know thyself. strip away the mask, or someone else who knows a few things more than you will write your story for you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.